Have you ever looked at your backpack and had that feeling of overchoice? Like, man, what do I even use today? Probably not, since the majority of players just stick to the meta of mostly stock weapons. A lot of players will decide to pick a main or a handful of the classes, learn the meta with those and just keep improving at those classes. However, I was one of those players that just wanted everything. Not just in terms of what classes I play, but also the weapons. There are so many weapons I cannot stand the fact that by sticking to just one main loadout for each class all the time, I would be missing out on 80% of the playstyles of all the other weapons. And that's when I started using a loadout randomizer. Now, I had used a randomizer at times before, just for goofing around. But about 1.5 years ago, I don't know what happened, but it just became my main way of playing the game. Nowadays, I don't boot up the game without booting up a loadout randomizer too. And I'm actually surprised at how much I learn about this game by playing this way. So strap in and I'll tell you everything I discovered while playing in this rather obscure way. If you have never used a loadout randomizer, chances are you might be slightly confused. So what is a loadout randomizer? Basically, you press a button and it gives you a random class, and then it randomly assigns weapons for that class. There are a number of different loadout randomizers, both online and as apps on the phone. The main one I used is the loadout generator on genr8ers.com, but I also used a few others. With that out of the way, I want to begin by saying a few things if you're ever planning on attempting this like I did, because there are some major drawbacks to this. Obviously, if you're a newer player and your goal is to be a competitive player, then this is not for you, since knowing how to use the Sydney Sleeper optimally is not going to win you any tournaments. Another big drawback, although it was mostly because it was my own rule, is that the randomizer is your god. I was playing under a strict rule that I was not allowed to re-roll or switch classes ever once I had pressed the randomize button. I had to play an entire round with that loadout no matter what it was, which would sometimes lead to some interesting scenarios. Kom hit Pyro. Åh vänta, jag fick conjure, let's go!
Holy shit, va?
Ja, jag gjorde till mycket damage.
Hur?
Let's go!
Jag bara ser
oh my god!
Att jag skjuter dem. Jag supportar. Vi är bra.
Jag tar dem.
Du ledde den där först.
What the fuck?
Du är den bästa supporten just nu. Utan med lyckas.
Vänta, det där var en spy! Now because of this, you're forced into the class that you rolled. Which means if your team has 4 spies and you roll a spy loadout, guess what? You're gonna be the 5th spy. I could never change my loadout or switch classes dynamically according to what is happening in the game as any other player would. Being adaptable is one of the most important things in the game. If you're a new player, this is something you'll definitely want to learn, so again, don't do this. You'll probably just be doing yourself a disservice by making it more difficult to learn a game that already has an extremely steep learning curve. That being said, if you already have some basic knowledge of how to play the game, there are actually a few benefits to playing this way that I found throughout my 18 months of this. So, let's go over those, shall we? Obviously, this is subjective, as not everyone will enjoy playing like this. If you're already having fun playing with the same loadouts every time, then there's no reason to stop doing that. But if you feel yourself being bored or you feel like things are getting too samey, then switching up your loadout to something you never thought of using before is a great way of reducing boredom. And having that element of randomness relieves you of having to pick and choose your weapons yourself, while also kind of giving you a sense of case unboxing. Having about a 50-50 chance to get a good or a bad loadout makes the times you get a good loadout feel just a little bit more special. And when you're forced into using every weapon in the game, you do start getting... Now we're getting into the main meat. Before I started doing this, I was only really good at playing with my main loadouts, but playing with everything like this for so long, I can now confidently say that I'm at least decent with every weapon in the game. Since I started, I've gotten better at jumping and using the beggars, tripping without the tide turner, trick stabbing, rocket jumping with different rocket launchers, grenade hopping, and so many other things I would never have thought of getting better at. Of course, I have not mastered any of these things, as if I would want to do that, I would have to actually sit down and practice them for a longer period of time, which is not going to happen if I'm just playing one round of casual with a weapon every now and then. Still though, right now I cannot think of any weapon I would genuinely struggle with, unless that weapon is, you know, actually terrible. But what you learn instead from the terrible weapons is how you play around them the most effectively. For example, I roll the gas passer. My goal is not how can I use the gas passer most effectively, because, well, you can't. Instead, my focus becomes how can I play differently with my other weapons to make up for my lack of a secondary. Which is a nice segue onto how This is something that is more generally applicable to just using anything other than stock, but playing with a random loadout does change things, slightly. A surprising amount of people will try to use seemingly similar weapons in similar manners. Take for example the stock scattergun and the backscatter. I'm sure any person who have ever used these two will immediately agree that the scattergun is better. Even though that is 100% true, I think a lot of people agree for the wrong reason. The problem lies in how people compare the weapons. A lot of players will use the backscatter similarly as if they were using the stock scattergun and then dismiss it as worse. So even though their conclusion is correct, their way of coming to that conclusion is wrong. What you should be doing when you compare these items is to play them as they were intended. I.e., you should change your playstyle according to what strengths and weaknesses you have on said weapon. I.e., you should not use the backscatter like the scattergun, you should use it like, well, the backscatter. This is something that is easier to distinguish on some weapons, but it can be more difficult with others. But how does randomizing loadouts change this at all? Well, randomizing your entire loadout would just take this example, and instead of just applying it to singular weapons, it's your entire loadout. Here's an example. Here we have a stock scout and a randomized loadout. To keep things simple, we'll put the backscatter in our primary slot and just give the two other random weapons. Let's just say the winger and the sandman. Most would agree that the stock scout is just better, which is probably true, but you cannot compare them fairly unless you learn to play with the other loadout to its fullest potential. Meaning you have to change your playstyle and try your best to maximize the usage of all weapons in your arsenal. This would mean you'll be much more flank focused and probably want to learn a couple of winger jumps. And try your best to get any use out of the sandman possible. Maybe target faster classes like medics and other scouts. Now let's just switch one weapon in a loadout. Say we got the mad milk instead. These loadouts seem very similar. Some would say, well, I'll just stick to the same playstyle except I have the mad milk instead. No. If I roll something like this, I would be much more inclined to stick closer to my team, rather than prioritizing flanking. With this loadout, I would only flank when I happen to see an opportunity, rather than actively trying to flank. Now imagine this mindset across every weapon, across every class, and across every loadout combination possible. If you start to feel dizzy, I do not blame you, because this game has, excluding reskins, and if my math is correct, 2,563 possible loadout combinations. Medic having the least, only having 80, and Soldier having the most with a whopping 630 possible combinations. Of course, playing stock Pyro versus stock Pyro with the hot hand isn't going to change your playstyle a lot. But take it from me, there are probably still over 1,000 different playstyles you have never even thought of. That's what's so great and also so fun about randomizing. Picking out one playstyle out of over 2,000 options is kind of ridiculous. Randomizing just picks one for you. It's great, and personally, I love that. I love just booting up the game and This is where randomizers shine, when you've unlocked everything and there's no more progress to be made other than get better. With a game that lacks anything like monthly challenges or objectives, it's up to you, the player, to make your own challenge. And what better way of making your challenge than with a dice roll? Have you ever thought of playing Demonite with a base jumper? Not really. Do shotguns actually work on the heavy? Probably not, but why not find out? What if I had no ammo as Demoman? How many points can I score using only the shovel? So you see, there are so many different challenges waiting for you every single round as long as you press a button. I'm not saying you should go insane like I did, but I do think you should try it out if you haven't. Personally, I don't see myself ever stop playing like this. Honestly, I kind of prefer this way of playing casual sometimes. It gets a bit boring to aim for the highest score every single game. Having a new challenge every time I play a new round is a great feeling and has probably extended my will to play TF2. So I'm most likely going to continue playing with every weapon in the game, but mastering none of them. Before I end this video, I just want to share a few smaller discoveries I made while playing like this. The lock and load pairs well with discuss resistance because you can shoot at long range and keep your traps at mid range. You can earn a kill streak by airblasting projectiles from a weapon that is kill streak, even though your flamethrower isn't kill streak. Also, flamethrowers cannot get kill streaks from reflecting projectiles unless said projectile was fired from a weapon that is kill streak. You can bait a spy into backstabbing your razorback by quickly turning your back if the spy for some reason decides to melee fight you. The Cleaner's Carbine has a great synergy with the Citizen Sleeper as you can coat someone in their router and shoot them with the carbine to build your trichometer faster as minicrits are not affected by damage fall off. You can kill teammates by scoring the kill on them just as they get auto-balanced, and yes, this means that it's possible to have -1 kills in casual. Also, when I broke my personal record for most kills in one life as scout, I used a babyface with cleaver. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's a bit of a weird subject for a video essay, but I had great fun making it. While doing this experiment, I actually came up with a few ideas if I were to make my own randomizer. I could not find any program that let you pick and choose what weapon to include and which ones to exclude, because then you could choose to exclude either weapons you don't have, or reskins, or include things like all the all-class melee reskins. I thought I'd leave this here at the end in case any developer of any of these programs happen to see this video, which I highly doubt. That's pretty much all I have to say, so hit like if you liked it, hit subscribe if you subscribe it, hit the bell icon if you bell iconed it, and comment if you commented it. If you want to see some more, I'll leave you with these recommended videos of mine here.